Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Scotland and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel a good number of times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the years, quite a few different styles, and in my experience, this is a brewery who tend to be really quite solid all round actually. They don't release too many beers, they're not the most prolific of breweries, so whenever I see something new from these guys, I'm always keen to try it. So hopefully this is another good one. This beer comes from a series that they do that I've never tried anything from before, but I know that within this particular style bracket, they have been very solid in the past. So I'm looking forward to this one. Hopefully it's another good beer, and hopefully you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. And certainly nice to return to these guys after what feels like quite a while actually. So for this review, we are going to head up to the Highlands. We're going to go to the Black Isle to the north of Inverness and a little place called Davidston just to the south of Cromarty village to be precise. So that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from Cromarty Brewing Company. This one is simply called Azacca. It comes in at 6% ABV. It's an IPA. Exactly what kind of IPA it is, I'm not 100% sure, but we'll find out when we smell it and taste it. But this one comes from their Hop Showcase series. And this particular beer was a recommendation from Fraser at Beer Hive in Edinburgh. He said that he really enjoyed this one. They had the Sabro as well, but this was the one that he recommended, so I went with it because it was quite fun talking with him about all the different beers. But yeah, I'd never seen anything from this series before, but Azacca is a hop that I know I really enjoy, and we have had some really solid IPAs from these guys in the past. Happy Chappy and Rogue Wave, not Road Wave, are both really quite nice beers actually, so I would recommend that you try those if you get the chance. It's been quite a few years actually since I had a Happy Chappy, so maybe that is something that I need to set up with some of the other Scottish beer tubers and we can do a collaboration review. That would be quite fun. But yeah, like I said, really nice to return to these guys after quite a while, so let's crack on with this review then. As always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. Since it's focusing on Azacca, I will tell you a little bit about Azacca as well. But if you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Cromarty Brewing Company before. And like I said, when we do get the opportunity in the future, we will add more to that list. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Scottish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Cromarty Brewing Company then, on to my brewery notes. So Cromarty Brewing Company, as I've mentioned to you already, are based on the Black Isle, which is about 20 miles to the north of Inverness, and the brewery itself is in the little kind of hamlet, I guess you could say, of Davidston, which is to the south of Cromarty village, right at the tip, the northeastern tip, I guess we could say, of the Black Isle. But historically, the Black Isle was a malt producing region, and much of this was actually used to brew locally, or it was exported. But the original Cromarty Brewery was established by George and Alexander Ross back in 1790, and it's located next to a burn on the eastern extremity of Cromarty village at the corner of Miller Road and Burnside Place. But it was quite a large brewery considering the times, and it's thought that the port at Cromarty was used to export beer in addition to the cereals that the Black Isle was renowned for. But this brewery hit financial difficulties back in the 1820s when several whisky distilleries were opening up on the Black Isle, and the brewery ceased operations at some point in the 1850s. But this incarnation of Cromarty Brewing Company is a family-run business consisting of Craig, Chap and Jenny Middleton. So Craig is a graduate of the brewing programme at Heriot-Watt University down in Edinburgh, which is world famous these days. But while studying at Heriot-Watt, Craig had been well known to produce beer in his student halls, and he also produced it in the basement of his apartment block and things like that as well. But after he completed his degree, he worked for periods in Odell's Brewery in Colorado over in the States, and also for the Cairngorm Brewery in Aviemore as well. But while working in these breweries, he decided that he wanted to put his own beer out on the market, and so he applied for various different grants and bank loans to finance the startup of his own company. So Craig's dad, Chap, is the brewery engineer, and he gets quite involved in the maintenance of the brewing equipment, while his mum Jenny deals largely with the kind of business and paper side of the brewery, I guess you could say. But work on the brewery building commenced in spring of 2011, and this hectic year culminated with the production of the first beers in cask on the 19th of December 2011. But the brewery itself can be found on Cannon Street in Davidston to the south of Cromarty Village, as I mentioned to you earlier, and over the last few years they've been continuing to release new beers and build up their fermentation capacity. Within the last couple of years they changed from bottles to cans, of course, too. There was a fairly recent rebrand as well from what I remember, but as of September 2021, when I'm filming this particular review for you, these guys have produced around 90 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. So yeah, that is all I can really tell you about Cromarty Brewing Company actually. Like I said, I've had some really nice beers from them over the years, probably, you know, Happy Chappy and Rogue Wave were always very good. I've had Cowabunga at one point as well. Man Overboard, if I remember rightly, if I remember the name correctly, that was a very nice double IPA as well. But back in the day, I remember when these guys released their first beers, you know, Brewdog actually put them in a lot of their bars across the place, and that was Rogue Wave and Happy Chappy. And there was a lot of hype about this brewery, but they always just kind of stuck to brewing a core range rather than kind of being experimental and putting different beers out there. But like I say, their beers have always been really kind of solid. But I have to admit, I would have liked these guys to be a wee bit more experimental and a bit more prolific over the years, but they've always produced solid beer, and you can't really ask for much more than that. But yeah, good experiences with these guys in the past, and like I say, very nice to return to them. But if you want to learn more about the brewery itself, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. Social media is obviously a very good place to interact, and as always, you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that they've done. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer itself then. So just to let you have a little look at the artwork on this one before we open it up. As you can see, this is a little bit different from what you would normally get from Cromarty Brewing Company. This little thing that you can see in the middle of the can here, this used to be, just trying to get the camera to focus on this, doesn't want to. Yeah, so you can see this little sort of wave thing here in the middle of the can, that is what used to be the Cromarty Brewing symbol. They always used to have that on their bottle caps as well. I'm trying to remember, I think this is the first can that I've had from these guys, come to think of it. The last beer I'm pretty sure was actually a bottle, and they still release their anniversary beers in big bottles as well actually. But yeah, this one is the first in the Hop Showcase that I've had. I'm not sure how long they've been doing this series, but the artwork you see on this one is the same apart from the colour for the different members of this series actually. But yeah, like we said earlier, a 6% IPA. Exactly what kind of IPA it is, I'm not 100% sure, but it says on the back here, IPA hop with American variety Azacca, named for the Haitian god of agriculture, and this hop is big on citrus and tropical fruit tones, exploit flavours of mango, papaya, grapefruit and pine. So we'll see how that turns out, because in my experience, Azacca's always been, you know, quite pineapple-y, but also quite, you know, also quite tangerine-y. I've always found it quite similar to Mosaic in its kind of tangerine notes. Sometimes it gives you a wee bit of a sharper mandarin actually, but yeah, piney resin I have had in the past, so we'll see how much I agree with their tasting notes. But this one's a 440ml can. I actually can't remember what I paid from this, but like I said, this beer came from Beer Hive in Edinburgh. But let's get it out and we'll get on with the tasting then. So yeah, 13 to 14% alpha acid, I should say that about Azacca as well. And I think I first discovered Azacca back in maybe about 2015 or something like that. I do remember having a beer or two with Azacca before I headed out towards Australia. But yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. So, oh, this is actually a lot hazier than I thought it was going to be. So maybe this is going to be a New England, but this will be, if it is, this will be the first more New Englandy type IPA that I've had from them. But it says, yeah, it says on the side here, barley, oats, hop, yeast and water. But yeah, in my, you know, I'm curious about this because the Cromarty beers in my experience were always quite oily things. I always found them quite nice and fruity and oily. So yeah, I'm interested to see how a more kind of oaty and smooth one would turn out actually. But yeah, as you can see with this beer, it's poured a lovely, if we shine the light through this, it's actually quite murky. So I think on the camera it's coming across as quite bright to you guys, but to me, the naked eye, although we need to remember it's nighttime. So I would say that this beer is a kind of, you know, sort of murky kind of medium amber type colour for a New England. But before the head disappears on this one, you can see that it poured with about a 1/3 finger of a kind of creamy coloured head. I would say that has faded away to be kind of a thin foamy layer now, but you can see the height of it on the ring around the side of the glass. But yeah, sort of medium amber colour actually. But yeah, 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there. But I mean, overall, it does look pretty nice and, you know, kind of what you would expect from a modern IPA. But yeah, when I had a little look at this one on Untappd earlier, quite a few of the ones I saw actually looked a little bit more kind of West Coasty. That was why I was surprised when it came out this hazy. I wasn't quite expecting that. I thought it would be more of a kind of West Coasty looking beer. But yeah, so the colour of this one, as we say, is a kind of mid sort of orangey amber colour. If we were comparing it to fruit juices I often like to do, I would say it's a mixed tropical fruit juice, this one, rather than being a more yellowy mango juice or whatever. But yeah, remember the colour of your beer depends on 1, the type of malts that you use. That determines the kind of magnitude of the colour, if you like. Then 2, the length of your wort boil is also going to play a role. The longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. And any barrel aging that you do and any adjuncts that you put in are also going to affect that as well. But usually you only have to care about that when it comes to sour beers. But the level of haze in this one is pretty impressive. And remember, when it comes to these more kind of hazy New Englandy type IPAs, you know, the haze is dependent on the yeast, the oat content and the wheat content, although obviously there's not wheat in this one according to the label, unless that they're including that in the malty side of things. But yeah, it looks very nice, I have to say, in terms of that. So yeah, nothing really surprising about the appearance of this one, other than the fact that it came out hazy, which I didn't expect. But yeah, certainly looks the part. So let's have a closer look at the aroma of this one then and see how we get on. That is pretty nice actually. Smells pretty damn fresh as well. They only had 1 can of this left in the shop actually when I was in Edinburgh. So it seems to have sold pretty fast. So I think it might be one of the newer beers. It was, as I say, it was a choice of this one or Sabro, and I just took Fraser's recommendation, so why not? But yeah, the aroma on this one is very, very nice actually. So just to give you a kind of all-round thing, I would say that it's quite smooth and almost quite creamy in its malt base. The green component is very bright, kind of grassy and zesty and a wee bit floral, but you also get lovely juicy fruity characters to it. That's a kind of first impression of it, but let's delve into that aroma a wee bit more kind of deeply, if you like. So the backbone of the beer is definitely sort of white bready. You can smell a little bit of the bread crust in there, but to me it's a very, very smooth white bready character that you get out of this one. Absolutely. So yeah, lovely big kind of smooth white bready notes out of this beer. It's absolutely lovely. On top of that, you get a nice kind of you can smell a little bit of the kind of, you do get a lot of oaty smoothness out of this one. As I say, it's quite a fluffy, fresh white bread that you get out of this beer on top of the bread crust. But pardon me, the oats on this one are quite are just really kind of smooth. It doesn't smell like the thickest of IPAs that you'll get in this sort of hazy category, if you like, but you know, sometimes the more oaty leaning New England IPAs can be quite deceiving like that actually. As I've said to you before, with hazy IPAs, for me there's 6 directions you can take them. They can be sort of farmhousey and yeasty, they can be rye leaning and grainy, wheaty and bitey, oaty and creamy, barley malt leaning and bready, or they can be more kind of brown sugary leaning and oily, definitely. So yeah, I like how that goes together in this one. So this, you know, if we're comparing this to the big boys, you know, this is probably more along the lines of like a treehouse kind of IPA with the more oaty character. 100% one of the more oaty ones you're going to come across. But on the kind of brown sugary side of things, I would say that this beer, it does have a little bit of that. It's got a little bit of that kind of Werther's Original butterscotchy, butter candy type thing to it. You do get a little bit of that out of this beer. Maybe there's a teeny little hint of like a McVitie's digestive biscuit, but I would say that's very minimal. This beer for me, white bread, oaty smoothness, that's kind of where it would that's really where it would lie in the spectrum for me. You do get a little bit of yeastiness out of this one. You can smell that at the back of the nose. It does have 1 or 2 little kind of crackery notes and a sort of soft yeasty kind of character to it at the back of the nose. But yeah, it's quite a straight shooting malt base, this one actually. And of course, when it's a hop showcase, the focus will be more on the hops. But on that hoppy side of things, then the green component, there's a wee teeny little bit of earthiness to this one, but not a lot. Azacca is not known to give you such a big earthiness like Mosaic is, for example. But you do get a lovely kind of bright floral aromaticity to this one. You can smell that it's really nice and bright. I wouldn't describe it as spicy, but just very bright and aromatic. There's a lovely little bit of a kind of grassy character to this beer as well. It's quite zesty actually on the front of the nose. Lovely big kind of zesty grassiness in there. And yeah, you've got some lovely juicy fruity characters too. So I really like how this beer goes about its business from that perspective also. So yeah, aroma wise on the fruity side of things, it is very nice. So for me, yeah, it's quite a zippy sort of orangey tangerine note you get out of this one. Certainly a lot of pineapple. I'd say that I've always found Azacca, for me, it's always been kind of straight up tangerine and pineapple that I've got from this one, because they say here papaya and mango and grapefruit. I don't really get grapefruit out of this. Grapefruit is a lot more pungent in my opinion, so but we'll see if we get that on the taste right enough, but not really any grapefruit in the aroma. I can see why they say sort of mango and papaya, because it does have a wee bit more of a tropical underlining. It does seem a little bit more kind of complex than just pineapple, I would say. So that is definitely kind of noteworthy on that is definitely noteworthy when it comes to this particular beer. But yeah, there is a wee bit more than just pineapple to this one. But for me, yeah, it's got quite a sort of oily, tangerine note to it for sure. Maybe a wee bit of a sharper, zippy mandarin as well. But then, yeah, quite a lot of a kind of juicy pineapple. So I really like how that goes together in this particular beer. So yeah, I think this seems pretty solid actually for a sort of modern IPA. So take a little bit of time and just take a little bit of time and enjoy that aroma before you get stuck into this one. My brain's not working, but yeah, enjoy the aroma of this a little bit before you have a taste of the beer. But let's fire the last of it into the glass, as we always do, and yeah, we'll get this one tasted. So this one is the Azacca, part of the Hop Showcase series. A 6% IPA, by the looks of it, a New England IPA from Cromarty Brewing Company in Davidston, just to the south of Cromarty, on the Black Isle in the Scottish Highlands. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål, cheers. So yeah, it's pretty solid actually. What I'm going to say about this one, this is actually like quite a straight shooting IPA. This is the first hazy type IPA that I've had from these guys actually, and as I say, that's worth pointing out. I don't think I've had a New England from these guys before. So what I would say about this is, in a lot of ways, it strikes me as quite a straight shooting beer. And you know, if I compare this to Rogue Wave and Happy Chappy and stuff, just on first impression, it's not quite as striking as those beers were when I first had them. But you know, you have to remember this when you talk about a brewery and your favourite beers. Quite often, you know, the first one that you try is always the one that sticks with you. I've said this about some of the Swedish breweries, you know, Fermenterarna, Duck Pond and all of these kind of things. So, yeah. But you know, this one is pretty solid actually. So I'm going to say thumbs up to Cromarty Brewing for this. Yeah, I think it works. I do think it works. It could, you know, I would say it's got a nice smoothness from the oats, and it has a wee bit of biting. You know, it has a wee bit of bitiness at the back of the palate, which is more grainy. It could maybe do with just a little bit of wheat. I would say that about it. It could maybe just do with a little bit of wheat in it to kind of maybe just give that a wee bit more of a wheaty bite at the back of the palate as well. But this is quite a solid, easy drinking New England IPA, and of course the whole point of these beers is to showcase the hops, absolutely. So I don't know if they're sticking with the same malt base pretty much for all of these beers and just shifting the hops up, or if they are changing the malt base a little bit to kind of accent the hops a wee bit more. I don't know. But yeah, this is a nice beer, and I would be curious to try a few more in this series as well. I don't know how many they've released in it, but this is nice, so thumbs up to them. But let's try and break the flavour of this beer down for you a little bit more, as we always do. So, the malty side of the beer, I would say, the backbone of the middle third of your palate with this one, it is more kind of, I'd say, you've got a little, the middle third and the back third of your palate, you can feel a little bit of a bread crusty character go right across the middle of your palate. On top of that, you've got a lovely, soft, fluffy white bread coming out of this one, and that's the barley malt all the way. That is barley malt all the way that's giving you that. So I really do like how this one goes about its business in that particular regard. Yeah, just lovely, soft, white bready base to this one. But let's focus on the middle third of your palate then. So at either end of the middle third of your palate, you've got a little bit of a more kind of bread crusty, grainy sort of thing coming off of this one. So yeah, I like that about this beer. But on top of that soft white bread, you can certainly taste that smooth oaty kind of thing with this one. If you go right down the middle line of your palate, you can feel a nice kind of thick oaty character to it. Then as you push out towards the sides of the palate with this beer, then it's a little bit more kind of, as we say, it's a little bit more, I would say it's got a little bit of a more kind of smooth and sweetness to it. You can feel that the oats become just a little bit drier as you go out towards the edges of your palate there. I would say that overall this is not the sweetest of New England IPAs that you're going to come across. Like I said, it really does lean towards that kind of smooth oaty end of the New England spectrum, but in the middle of your palate you do get a wee tiny like dot, a concentrated dot of a slightly sweet character there. That's the booziness out of the beer. So there's a wee bit of Werther's Original in there. As you move further out from that, you get a little hint of a kind of McVitie's Digestive Biscuit. But yeah, the malt base in this one is overwhelmingly oaty, bready and smooth. So yeah, I would definitely say that about this beer for sure. So I like how this one goes about its business in that particular regard. There's not too much else to say about the malty, the middle third of your palate on this one, I should say, sorry, but it does get a wee bit smoother and more oaty. You can feel the oats kind of thickening up a wee bit in this one, the further that you go into the aftertaste. But yeah, that's the middle third of the palate covered in this beer, I would say. But yeah, into the back third of your palate then, so border region between middle third and back third of your palate, as you go into that middle third, you've got the back third of your palate, sorry, you get a wee bit more of a kind of grainy bread crusty build up there, but back third of your palate, as we say, bread crust underneath, kind of fluffy white bready character there, then you can feel it sort of thickens up a wee bit, and then on top of that you've got a little bit more of a kind of bready, you get a little bit more of that kind of farmhousey, yeasty kind of note out of the beer. So you can feel that on the back of the back third of your palate, there are a few sort of crackery, grainy notes in the back third of your palate with this one as well. But certainly on that back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. It condenses down a wee bit as you move further forward. Then into the middle third of your palate, it's quite squashed together. So yeah, I like how this beer goes about its business in that particular regard. The yeasty and the malty side of things in this beer is very nice, in fact. So yeah, thumbs up to Cromarty Brewery on this one, absolutely. But yeah, malt base and yeasty side of things is very nice. Hoppy side of the beer then, you do actually get a wee bit of earthiness out of this one in the back corners of the palate, which is quite interesting. As you move further forward, it is a little bit herbal. Now you need to remember, when it comes to the hoppy side of these more New Englandy type IPAs, these beers rely a lot on late edition hopping as opposed to West Coast IPAs, which have a lot more early edition hopping. Remember, the early edition hops are the ones that give you the bitterness in the beer, and the late edition ones are the ones that give you the flavour and aroma. Dry hopping, of course, is 100% flavour and aroma, but the wort boil of these beers tends to be 90 minutes, and most of the flavour and aroma hops are added in the last half hour or the dry hopping afterwards. But yeah, this one it does have quite a nice green component to it in that sense. So there's a wee bit of earthy character in there, there's a little bit of herbalness, and as you move further forward, there's quite a bright floral aromaticity to this one. Again, I wouldn't describe it as spicy, but nice and bright and floral, I would say. But round the front curve of the palate, it's certainly a little bit kind of brighter and grassy for sure. But yeah, I really like how this beer goes about its business from the green perspective. It's quite nice and smooth, but it's actually, the grassiness is a wee bit zesty, but at the same time you do get a bit of a kind of wet leafy character with the green component in this beer, which is kind of interesting. But let's focus on the front third of your palate and the fruitiness then. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, again, bit of bready build up in there, wee bit of bread crust. Base of that front third of your palate is sort of soft white bread, and then on top of that you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. So let's focus on that then and see what fruits we get. So yeah, for me, it's interesting because the further you go into the aftertaste with this one, you can feel a bit of the smoothness of the oak come out on that front third of your palate. But yeah, I would say this beer for me, it's soft tangerines and it's pineapple. This is kind of what I've always got from Azacca, to be honest with you. I can see why they would say a bit of papaya, because you do get a wee bit of that soft kind of dry tropical fruit out of it. But I have to say, I definitely disagree on the grapefruit. I don't think there's grapefruit to the to this one. I would say I can see where they're coming from with the papaya. The mango, not really, to be honest with you. I think that the fruity character in this one, it doesn't hang around. The fruity character in this beer doesn't hang around too much. You do actually get quite a bit of a concentrated citrusy zest out of this one, but I'd say it's more, that gives the beer a little bit more of an almost kind of, it's almost, I don't know if you could say mandarin, it gives it a wee bit of that more kind of orangey, zesty zip. So the back half of that front third of your palate, there maybe is a wee bit of that papaya thing in there. I can definitely see where they're coming from there. But when you move into the front half of that front third of your palate, you get the more oily, fruity characters out of it. And for me, that is more tangerine and almost a little bit mandarin-y. But then on top of it, you certainly get a nice kind of pineapple-y character. So yeah, I like how that side of this beer goes together, actually. So yeah, I don't think there's too much else to say about the fruity side of this one. I think that kind of rounds it off quite nicely. But this is, it shows off, I have to say, it shows off the Azacca hop quite nicely, to be honest with you. So yeah, I think we can move on to the mouthfeel to round off the review. So mouthfeel wise, I would say this beer is, I think it's mid-bodied. I think it's right in the middle of the spectrum. The carbonation is very, very smooth. You know, it's not the creamiest of New England IPAs that you're going to come across, but it certainly leans towards that creamy smooth side of thing. But, you know, as I often say in Scottish beer reviews, you can feel the sort of cleanliness of the water in the mouthfeel as well. And I think that's maybe part of the thing that always gave the more West Coasty leaning IPAs from Cromarty that oily character that they had. I think that was part of the reason. So you can see it a bit more clearly in this more hazy IPA. So you can feel this beer does have a really kind of clean vibe to it, if you like, which I do enjoy. It says on the can that this one is 40 IBUs. I don't know whether I would have guessed that, to be honest with you. It does feel a little bit more bitter, but remember, IBU counts are my weakest point of beer reviewing, so I've got a feeling that I might have thought this one was a fairly standard 30 or something like that. But yeah, the bitterness does linger there a wee bit the further into the aftertaste that you go. But the malty side, as I said, is very, very smooth. This is certainly not the sweetest of New England IPAs that you're going to come across. Very, very smooth in terms of its kind of hoppy, smooth character. And then, as I say, you've got some lovely, juicy, fruity notes to this one. And I would say the fruits, they're not the most oily, but yeah, certainly quite soft and quite juicy, in my opinion. So yeah, I think we can round off this review there. So another really solid beer, this one. As I said, I don't think this is the most kind of striking and bold beer that you're going to get from Cromarty Brewing Company. But, you know, again, it's just very solid. As I said at the start of the video, these guys, not the most prolific of breweries, but they'll always put solid beers out there when they do put something new out. And this beer kind of carries on with that sort of vibe, or what's the word I'm looking for? That sort of mantra, I guess we could say. So yeah, again, thumbs up to Cromarty Brewing Company. I need to try a few more from this series when I do have the opportunity. But yeah, I do want to try their 2 anniversary beers, actually. I need to see if I can get a hold of those. There's 2 of them floating around at the moment that seem quite interesting. So we'll try and figure that out. And I think I need to review the Cowabunga. I need to check which ones I've reviewed and which ones I've not, but I'd love to review the rest of the core range as well. But yeah, we can leave it there. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Cromarty and from the Hop Showcase series that they do. And like I say, hopefully we can return to these guys the next time I'm back in the motherland. But thank you for watching. Slange out Skull, cheers. Check out my other Cromarty reviews. Check out my social media, check out theirs, and I'll see you guys on the next one. This one was the Azacca 6% New England Hazy IPA from Cromarty Brewing Company's Hop Showcase series. Slange out Skull, and cheers.